What is upregulation of receptors? So just to review the different types of up and down regulation, we have our upregulation and we have our downregulation. And these are concepts that relate to homeostasis because they have to do with either an increase or a decrease in receptor sites, because we don't want too much of anything. If you have too much or too little of something, it's not good. The body will not be balanced, and we need to balance it out correctly. So an example of upregulation would be an increase in receptor sites as needed. So let's say you only have a certain amount of receptors, for example. Let's say it's here. And let's say maybe you need more going into childbirth. You need more receptors to be able to contract the uterus to get the baby out. Or maybe you're listening to something and you need to hear closely because it's very low, and we need to increase the receptors so we could hear better. So how upregulation works is that we would then create in the body more receptor sites, as opposed to the opposite, downregulation, which would be you have too many receptor sites for what is needed at that time. Maybe, for example, the body's secreting a lot of insulin right now and the blood sugar levels are dropping, and we want to prevent that. So how we eliminate how much insulin is being secreted, for this example, downregulation, we would just eliminate some of these sites so there aren't as many, because if you have less sites, then it's less secretion. So that would be a decrease in receptor sites. So taking a look at the choices, look at the wording of the difference of some of these. So if you look at option A, we see decreased number of receptors to their affinity to a ligand. So receptors or their affinity to a ligand. And we see option C says increased number of receptors or their affinity to a ligand. So when you're talking about up or down regulation, that's what you want to focus on, affinity to a ligand. As opposed to in options B and D, you might notice they say inhibition of receptors by ligand or activation of receptors by ligand. But when we're talking about up and down regulation, we're talking about actual receptor sites, not about inhibition or activation. Those are different processes of receptors. So we can eliminate options B and D. And then which one to choose? Well, we're focusing on here the upregulation, which, as we saw in this example, upregulation, we increased the amount of receptor sites. So we would go with option C here, an increase in number of receptors. Option A, which says decreased number of receptor sites, would be the opposite. That would be downregulation. So down, but we are looking for up, which is option C.